Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Try Not to Curse. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into it. You guys have seen a lot of stuff is going on in the news. We lost Dame Maggie Smith at the end of September. And then after that, it set off some kind of catalyst. I don't even know if I'm using that word properly. And just people were just falling off. People were just dropping off. We were dropping like flies. We were losing really special people in the industry. And then we had the hurricane and we lost a bunch of our just regular everyday, average Joes to this horrific natural event that we had that we just, climate change being what it is, we didn't expect. It's pure carnage down in the South. And I feel for these people. redcross.org, if you can donate. It's just incredible. It's pretty wild. And one of my company has a location down in one of the spots that was hit. And they were closed for days while just because, some employees lost everything. So it wasn't even a matter of any damage to the building itself or the production line, but it was more a matter of we just physically can't get our people in. And what matters more is that we get a head count and make sure everybody is safe and that we can provide for our employees whatever they need at this time. Because as you've seen, people have lost everything. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge what's been going on in the past couple of weeks because it's really bananas. Like I said, between not only what's happening down south, but just in social media with all of the celebrities that we've lost. And I think literally like since Dame Maggie Smith passed, I think it was at least one celebrity per day ever since. And has it been a full week yet even at this point? It's just crazy to me. But one in particular that I wanted to talk about, his name was Ken Page. Not a whole lot of people know him. He was a voice actor. He voiced Oogie Boogie in the Nightmare Before Christmas, the Tim Burton film. And the reason I bring him up is because we've talked about this ad nauseum. You've heard me talk with Abby about it. You've heard me talk with my mother about it. I had the chance to meet Ken when I went to the Boston Fan Expo with my mother a couple of years back. And I kept walking by his booth and being like, oh, it would be really cool to meet him just because Oogie Boogie is one of my favorite characters of all time. As you guys know, I say that I'm not a fan of musicals. The Nightmare Before Christmas is one of my favorite musicals. It is, my very first job ever was working at Hot Topic in the mall when I was 16. I was there for 3 years and we had a setup where we had a 6-disc CD changer and every day we would come in and that was like your privilege during your shift. You could pick what CDs you wanted to listen to throughout your shift to kind of make life a little better for you in retail. And from October to December, I played the Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack every single day that I was working. My coworkers wanted to slaughter me, but it was one of those that it made me so happy. It put a smile on my face. I sang along while I was working. The customers would come in and they would love it. And it holds really fond memories for me. And that character in particular, his song in it in particular is just so much fun and was just brought so much joy to my life. And hearing that he passed, knowing that I had at one point the opportunity that I could have said hello to him, I could have met him. Same thing with Carol Spinney, who used to be Big Bird in Sesame Street, as amongst other things that he did with Jim Henson's company. I had the opportunity to meet him as well, and I didn't. And then he passed the following year. So it's just, again, we talk about the money that we spend. We talk about the time that we take. We talk about, being in the chaos of long lines and a crush of hundreds of thousands of people year in, year out. But this is why. It's because we miss out on those opportunities that we don't take. And seeing all of these deaths just happen within the last week and a half. And then again, the deaths that are just amongst the regular folk, the people that, stand beside us at work, the people that commute with us on the same roads every morning and not knowing that day that you drove by your neighbor was going to be the last day you were ever going to see them. It's crazy and it's scary to think about, and it's not something that we should be thinking about on a daily basis because that's really anxiety inducing, but it's just one of those where it's like, I think people, you don't appreciate it until it's gone. Right. So, again, that's why I'm working all this overtime. That's why I'm killing myself. I'm so exhausted. I think as of this recording, in the past 24 hours, I think I've gotten 5 hours of sleep. My schedule is so fucked right now, but it is what it is. Like, again, I'm not going to miss out on these important opportunities, like this episode, for example. So today we have a follow-up episode. If you remember my friend Crystal from season 1, she was a surrogate. She was in the process of trying to get pregnant for her IPs, who we're going to meet today. We do have a follow-up. She had successfully gotten pregnant. She has successfully had the baby, and the IPs are going to be joining us as well. So it's kind of a full circle situation. We're talking about all of these deaths, and now we're going to talk about the wonderful birth and the experience that both Crystal and her IPs have had during this process. And I just hope you get something out of this episode, because I was really, really looking forward to talking to them and hearing the other side, the other side of the story. So again, you guys, it's been a lot. It's been on my mind. And I know sometimes the show goes off the rails, and I've had these 2 unhinged episodes where we're just kind of, just talking about a bunch of shit that doesn't matter. But, with all of the deaths and all of the destruction that we've been seeing here in this country and abroad, it's just one of those. I just kind of wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that there's a lot going on. People are stressed. People are just trying to survive out there, and we all just need to take a moment and, it doesn't have to be Comic-Con necessarily, but we should be taking a moment and going up to our fellow man and saying, hey, I appreciate you're here. I'm glad that you showed up, so just think about that as you're walking through your day, and take a beat and just be appreciative of those around you, because you don't know. It could be one bad storm and they're gone. So with that, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you for your continuing patronage of this show. If you want to pay me, that'd be great. I know it's free right now, but as you guys know, we're struggling with that. But again, I just wanted to take that second and acknowledge all the crazy shit that's been happening literally within 20, the past, it's been a week and a half. It hasn't even been full 14 days. And holy cow, the loss of life. But again, I'm so thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for all of my guests who have been on the show thus far, both season 1 and season 2 now. So this is Try Not to Curse, and welcome. Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Try Not to Curse. This is a special one. It is a follow-up episode. If you all remember Crystal from season 1, she was beginning her surrogacy journey. We were talking about that. She was in the process of hopefully getting pregnant. Our girl has successfully gotten pregnant. She has since had the baby, and she has brought her IPs with us and the beautiful baby Lenny as well. I get to look at a baby for the next hour, you guys. I'm so happy. But James and Neil are joining us. Now, first of all, I will say, I thought you guys were in California. So when you had said, oh, let's chat 8 a.m. your time, we're going to try and put the baby down for a nap. I said to Crystal, I said, what time are these people getting up that the baby's taking a nap at 5 a.m.? Like what? She said, no, they're in the UK. And so now for me, that's like a whole other, this has opened up so many more questions. And I will say, James and Neil, I don't do any research of any kind for these shows. It's all just kind of off the cuff. I call them my dum-dum questions, because that's really what it is. Like I have absolutely no idea about any of these things. So we're going to get into all of this, but that you guys are in a completely different country. That's just added a whole new level of like, wait, what? So Crystal, James, Neil, and Lenny, thank you guys so much for joining me. How is everybody this morning?
Great, thank you.
We're really great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
doing
being
well.
on. This is just, I'm like over the moon about it. I don't even know where to begin. So when we talked to Crystal in season 1, you had said I think at the time you had, this was like your second round, like you had tried to get pregnant once, it didn't take, and then you were hoping that the second time it was going to. Now, was the first time also with James and Neil, or was it with another set of IPs?
No, it was with James and Neil. Okay. It was just our second transfer attempt, because it doesn't always work the first time, but the second time did work. And we, they call it a 2-week wait period. So it's like TWW, where they wait 2 weeks before they go take your blood to see your levels, to see if you're actually pregnant or not. But I definitely was overly anxious, as I'm sure the James and Neil were. And within like 4 days, I think I started taking pregnancy tests. And I think I probably within the next couple days, I took like 30 different ones.
Oh, wow.
And you could see every day the line sometimes getting a little darker and it's faint, and it was definitely successful. So that was awesome to kind of go through. And I have a picture, I'm sure, I don't know if they saved it, of literally of all the different types of pregnancy tests that I did, just to make sure that it was all accurate.
There were a lot of tests, yeah.
and Crystal, I know you had to go through all these different health screenings and health checks, and just to make sure that you would be a good candidate for surrogacy. But James and Neil, what was the process like for you? And at what point did you decide that surrogacy was the route that would be best for your family?
Who's talking?
Shall I go first?
You go first.
We'll just interject a little time. We had quite a long journey, to be honest, to kind of working out how we wanted to have a family. And we actually started looking at adoption back in the UK. That was kind of our first kind of port of call. And to be fair, it's what most people do in the UK still at the moment. And surrogacy is becoming more common and popular, but a lot of people still adopt. And we were doing that back in, when was it? Pre-COVID. So we were having some conversations then with some of our local authorities in London. So we're based in London. And we were seriously considering that. Then we got to a point basically where we found out that if we wanted to have a baby, we had to go through a process which would be kind of a foster to adopt process to be able to have a baby, which basically means that you foster the baby to start with, and then what the agencies do is they try and get those babies back to their original parents. So it means that you've got like quite a big chance that at some point in time, maybe after a year or so, that you have to give a baby back. We decided, to cut the story short, that was kind of too tough for us really to kind of even consider.
Sure.
But we really wanted a baby, wanted to kind of go through the whole process. In the UK, the laws are a bit different, so maybe we can touch on that later, tell you a bit more about that later. But so we ended up in the States, and we had to go through quite a big process as well to make sure that, I guess it's, the one thing we love about the process in the States is it all feels really 50-50. So it's as much about protecting surrogates, egg donors, intended parents, and kind of everybody matters, if that makes sense. So we had to go through psychological screening. We had to go through tests to make sure that, we kind of were viable to be able to go through a process as well. So yeah, it's much more simple than what Crystal had to go through, obviously, physically. But there was lots to go through on our side as well.
Well, so I know from what I've heard here in the States, and it does also vary state to state as well, which I think is a big difference in this country. Just the adoption process in general, it can be very tedious. It can be very expensive. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork that you have to go through. So was it similar in the UK, where it was just a situation where it was like, this is overwhelming, or like you said, it's mainly set up more like the foster to potentially adopt, and you guys were just like, that's not going to work for us?
I think fundamentally, because a couple of friends have adopted, it's quite a lengthy process. It can take about 2 years just to be approved. And I think you have to be really open to the age of the child, and you have to accept that many children who come through the sort of adoption foster system will have gone through some sort of trauma. And I think we also just looked at it was also the fact that it was COVID. We were supposed to get married in 2020, that got delayed. And so we just also just looked at the fact that it would be a long time before we could possibly actually receive a child. So it's a lengthy process here, and you sort of have to be willing to go through that. And I think we just looked at both possibilities and thought, well, it could take just as long to have a baby. And we thought, actually, maybe it will work in our favour to do that sooner.
Yeah.
And there weren't restrictions in place like there was with adoption. It's very much get all your life stuff out of the way, get married, get your loft conversion done. Or attic. What's it called over there? An attic?
Yeah, attic.
So it's, the adoption process here is tough. You know, you have people come and interrogate you and your family and make sure that you're, great people that are happy to take on a child who's going to have some trauma. And I think part of us also felt like we didn't necessarily want to be approved to be parents, if you like.
Yeah.
I know that we can't really have children, but so many people do just have children. Why, if we can,
why not?
Why would we not try and do that?
Yeah.
Although we do still need to be approved in the UK, because in the UK we're still going through kind of legal processes even now with Lenny, and right now we're both not seen as Lenny's parents in the UK, so it's a complicated process.
That's crazy. How I mean, it's interesting, but also that's fairly shocking.
Yeah, so Lenny is technically mine, considering to the UK.
Okay, so I was going to get into it,
even though Lenny has it's not my egg. There's no DNA. Like Lenny, just because Lenny came out of my body, Lenny is technically mine.
Okay.
In their eyes.
I was going to ask that question too, whose egg it was. And again, not to be glib about this, but the Kardashians talk about this because Kim Kardashian had a surrogate for 2 of her children. Khloe Kardashian had a surrogate for her second child. And they do touch on it in an episode where they say, if for whatever reason it turns out to be twins that the surrogate ends up carrying, that's grounds for terminating the whole agreement. And it's really interesting how nuanced it is, and how, I mean, like you said, they tried their best to make it 50-50 for both the IPs and the surrogate, because, again, the surrogate's putting their body on the line, and you don't want to do anything to potentially endanger them. But the fact that I think it's things that people don't initially think about, like, oh, what if it is twins? Did we only want the one kid? Were we prepared to have 2? Or just, something happens in their life and all of a sudden it's, well, we want to terminate it completely, but you also kind of need the approval from the surrogate as well, like if that's what they want to do. So it's really interesting once the surrogate becomes pregnant, how the dynamic kind of shifts, and all the other things that you have to think about that goes with that. Whereas, initially it's just, will they get pregnant? Will they get pregnant? Then once they are pregnant, now it's a whole another aspect and headspace to kind of wrap things around. So it's all been really fascinating for me to kind of see this journey and hear what's going on. But at the same time, Crystal, and as I'm sure you both are aware, she wasn't able to divulge everything, because obviously there's privacy laws and things like that, and contracts and what have you. So, how long was the process for the 2 of you prior to actually meeting Crystal and deciding that this is the person that we want to be our surrogate?
So when was it? We got married in 2020. I think 2021. But I think by the start of 22, we had signed up to an agency in LA. And what was great is that we came across an agency that was set up by gay men who had used surrogates for their children. So there seemed to be lots of agencies set up by women who'd been surrogates. But we really liked the fact there was an agency that had been set up by men.
Sure.
And we really liked that they would be part of the kind of essentially guiding us through that journey from their perspective. And they were brilliant. So we signed up to them, and they were kind of like a start to finish kind of agency. They would point you in the direction. So they have egg donors on their books. They have like a database of egg donors. They also have a database of surrogates. And we did go through one journey initially with separate egg donor and surrogate. It just didn't work for us. So it's probably I'm going to say, when did we meet Crystal? When did we meet you?
I'm going to say the beginning of 23.
Yeah, it must have been.
Because we were agreed upon, and then I had Mary's wedding, and so I couldn't do any of the medical stuff.
Yes, because we signed up with our agency before our wedding. Maybe it's our honeymoon we were doing. Yeah.
Okay, so it's
been a long time.
We signed up to the agency in 2021, started the journey, didn't work out, and then kind of, I think we took a break, started again at the end of 2022. We'll have met Crystal at the start of 2023.
Yeah.
So it was a good, 3-4 years really, that we were kind of going through the motions. And I think one of the lessons I've learned is you do need patience, because you want to do things as well as you can, and it's science at the end of the day. Like, there's no guarantee that you're going to get eggs from your egg donor. There's no guarantee that you're going to be able to create embryos. There's no guarantee that embryo is going to stick. And that would be my one piece of advice to anyone that goes through this process. You've just got to be patient with it, and with all the will in the world. It's like anyone trying to get pregnant. You've got to just wait and hope. And yes, it costs to do things each time, but that's what we chose to do.
Yeah.
And now we've got everything we wanted.
And he's so beautiful. But again, just like you said, I mean, whether it be adopting, whether it be in vitro fertilization, whether it be the surrogacy route, it all costs money. It's all ridiculous. It's all a waiting game. It's all just, you're going in there just with faith that it'll work out. But it plays a toll on you mentally, for sure. How is it that you found this agency in LA? Was it just a simple, just a Google search, and you were just comparing the different agencies that you were coming across? I'm just really interested as to why, aside from who it was that set up the agency and but just how you came upon somebody in LA rather than somebody in the UK where you're at.
I think we did lots of Googling. We found a website called Men Having Babies, which was actually a really useful website for us. And that kind of gave lots of tips and advice. We quickly, I don't know whether it was through different blogs or other things that we found on the internet, we found certain people, and we ended up reaching out to certain people who were based in the UK, who had gone through a process in the States themselves. And then you start to quickly get to know that, lots of this is going on in California, quite lots going on in Texas was somewhere where we heard more about. And we kind of went down that route. And I think with our agency in particular, as Neil said, it was kind of one that stood out because it was, founded by gay men who had been in a similar situation to us. So it kind of just stood out and was well recommended. And then we ended up basically trying to get some... what was the process?
We essentially, it's what I do with a lot of things. When you kind of stumble across like a restaurant, for example, you might have a Google, you'll look at the reviews.
Sure.
You might go on Instagram and see if people have eaten there and what they said. We kind of did the same for this agency. We went on Instagram to see if anyone had tagged them. And this guy had tagged them because they'd done a journey with this agency. I reached out on Instagram and said, hey, we're considering signing up to this agency. Would love to know about your experience. He was like, you won't believe this. Loved it so much. I now work for them.
Oh,
and
my
he ended up
goodness.
becoming our coordinator.
That's something else.
So I don't know, the kind of stars aligned there.
Yeah.
Reaching out just so happened that he ended up working for them because he loved their journey. So super happy.
Well, that's awesome. And what was the process like? What getting to Crystal? Like, obviously, I'm assuming it's not like, like a personal ad or something. Like, you're not going through a catalog of just photos. You're not basing it on the photo. You're basing it on obviously her health and her history. But what was it about Crystal that you said, yeah, I think this is who we like, and this is going to work for us?
Well, I'll tell you a bit about.
It kind of is like photos, though.
Oh, really? That's so interesting, because you would think like one doesn't have anything to do with the other.
It was more like that with finding the egg donor, to be honest.
Okay.
So with the egg donor, it is like going on a dating website, and I guess the first thing you see is a picture of someone. So obviously we didn't choose our egg donor just based on their picture. Sure. But that's the first thing you have to connect with to be able to then read and understand about them. So when we were finding our egg donor, like, our criteria really was, well, the photo needs to be somebody who looks friendly, who we would probably, I don't know, someone who we feel like we just connect with and feel like we could be friends with. So I don't know, like they didn't necessarily have to be the most beautiful person in the world. They just had to be someone we connected with.
Okay.
And then, the story, but then when you read about them, it's kind of connecting with them in that way as well. And with surrogates, it's a little bit different because they're in much shorter supply, to be honest. So there's a lot more choice with egg donors. With surrogates, it's a bit more like the agency will recommend people to you who they think might be a good fit for you based on, the connection they built up with you and what they know that you're looking for in a surrogate as well. So, we just, I think the most important thing for us really was just somebody who we felt, we connected with straight away, but also that would just be really honest with us, because we were like, we're over in the UK, this woman's going to be over in America, and therefore naturally we're a bit disconnected.
Sure.
And it's so important that we need to feel like our surrogate will tell us how they're feeling or what they're thinking or what they need. And I think one of the things we loved about Crystal straight away was that she's just quite direct and in a really positive way, and just says what she thinks. We really, really appreciated that in her.
Yeah, that's what I love about her. That's why we connected as well. But just speaking back about the egg donor, do you get to meet the egg donor, or is it literally, again, you kind of just pick somebody in a binder and say that they seem like a good fit for us? So you've met them.
That's what we liked. That is half the reason why we ended up doing it in the US. In the UK, you don't get to see who the egg donor is. Yeah. You don't get to see a picture.
Okay.
And I think we liked being able to connect with someone when it came to the egg too. So we had a Zoom. We had a 20-minute Zoom. It was a meeting. Both parties had to go away and say yes or no. So they come with questions for us, and we had questions for her. And you go away and say,
that's the thing though. That's important. It is a mutual selection. And obviously, like with the surrogate as well, like Crystal could have obviously said at any point, no, I don't want to do it with these guys. But like, it's the same with the egg donor. Like, it's not just that once they've decided to give their eggs, that's it. Like, right. That's what we liked. We liked that we could meet, and we liked that it, needed to be mutual on each side.
Well, and I think that's good for Lenny as well, because in the future, if he's ever thinking like, I want to know where I came from. So my mother was adopted, and it was actually very much like a similar situation where it was initially just supposed to be a foster care situation. And at some point she was eventually going to go back with her birth mother. But then that just didn't happen. And it turned it, I mean, granted, the 1960s in America with the adoption agencies was very different. Like there was not a lot of oversight, and no one ever really checked in on her, like basically until she was 18. And then it was like, oh, just sign this paperwork. You're no longer a ward of the state kind of thing. But so she ended up staying with her foster family her whole life. And now they're a part of our extended family. We have a great relationship with them. But she still wanted to connect with her birth mother later on in life. And so now we have this whole other extended portion of our family. So the fact that they give you that option that you can sort of build this relationship with everyone involved along the way, I think is really, really nice. I can understand it, from the UK's perspective with privacy laws and this should be cut and dry because this is now your family, and, maybe people don't want to be involved in that way and be attached. Maybe some people just say, nope, just here's my egg, take it, and we'll see you later. But I think that's really nice that they give you that option. And then again, like I said, for Lenny later on down the line, if he says, I'd like to get to know the other half of where I came from, I think that's really wonderful.
I think the truth is, like, we have a very different relationship with Crystal,
of course,
and our egg, because obviously we've been through an experience together with Crystal, and she's become, one of our closest friends as well. Like, do you know what I mean? So Crystal will always be a big part of our life. And I think with our egg donor, it's really nice that we've met her and we can say to Lenny, yeah, we met her and she's this really nice person and this is a little bit about her. And that, he has that choice if he wants to be able to reach out in the future as well. And that's his choice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so once Crystal finally got pregnant, how hard was that 9 months of not physically, being there for every checkup and for all of the, seeing the changes in her body and not being able to feel the baby kick and things like that? Did you feel like you had kind of missed out? I mean, I know she's very good at communicating and sharing as much as she can, but not physically being there the entire time, I would imagine was kind of tricky.
I'll tell you what Crystal was amazing at: camera work. So she would, I know what you're saying. She would video every single doctor's session and on FaceTime us or WhatsApp video call us.
Great.
And her ability to kind of point the camera at the nurse or then point the camera at her bump was just amazing. To be honest,
this is whilst other stuff was going on for Crystal. If that makes sense.
Right.
I think because Lenny's our first, and this is how we did it, I think it was just our normal to just be at scans and things on the phone. I think we also kind of just accepted that that's just how it is.
The hardest bit was we came out for the 20-week scan.
20 weeks, yep.
Was that in November or December?
December-ish, yeah.
Yeah, last year. And we spent some time with Crystal, which was fab, actually. And it was nice because obviously we got to come out for the scan, which was really important, but we got to actually get to know Crystal and, probably spend some time with her. And I think that was amazing, but also the hardest bit was leaving at that point. Of course,
yeah.
Because, we'd really kind of cemented a connection at that point, and then going back home and leaving Crystal and leaving the bump there as well was quite emotional, and Neil was quite emotional.
Yeah, I'm an emotional wreck.
Yeah, anyway. We both were, but that was tough.
That's wonderful, though. Now,
but we make it work, didn't we? We just did. We were kind of. You would tell us when things were going on or how you were feeling, and then
sending pictures of the growing belly.
Yeah.
Well, and now, Crystal, you have two children of your own. So, and you said again in our first interview in season 1, you were very, honest with them about the whole process. This is what mom is looking to do. She's trying to help a family. But once you were actually pregnant, what was it like with the kids? I mean, were they all in? Were they kind of freaked out about it, especially knowing the fact that it's at the end of the day, this baby's not coming home with us? How involved were they, or was it more kind of like, oh yeah, this is just something mom's doing to help out some people, like,
Yeah, I don't think it really bothered them. And even now, it's just like, oh, that was something she did. Like, I think it was just so dismissive to them, knowing that, I mean, they know they've met Lenny, they've met James and Neil, like it was a part of it, but I don't think because I made it such a big deal, right? Like it wasn't something that I talked to them all, like, I don't know, because it's not their child, like it's not their sibling. So it's not like, oh, like come feel my belly or like come like say hi to your brother or sister or like, you know, you're gonna like, I wasn't preparing them for any change in their life. Yeah. Aside from me just, you know, possibly not moving around. But I mean, my son definitely was like, you know, can you not be pregnant anymore? Because he wanted to play. And so he didn't like that I could like run around with him anymore. And
he was over
like,
it.
You know, like, he was just like, come on, mommy can't play with me. What is going on? And so, but no, they were fine. And then when I ended up, they were at their dad's, fortunately enough, when I ended up, my water breaking and giving birth. So it wasn't like a big, like, deal for them, like, because nothing got really changed. And then they came into the hospital just to check on me, which I think was good because I don't think they've never been into a hospital. And I think as children, you only know of hospitals as being a scary, bad thing when people are like not doing well. So they were definitely a little nervous that I was in the hospital because I ended up having a C-section. So when they came to visit, I think it was good to see that I was like actually up and moving around and then I wasn't hurt. Right. And then like, so, but it was good. They're fine. They don't like occasionally, you know, there's a movie that has a character named Lenny and my daughter will be like, oh, Lenny, like, you know?
Yeah. That's really sweet.
But aside from that, they're not affected.
Okay. Well, good. Hey, and that's good. And it's good that you've been so honest with them throughout the whole process. And like you said, just, you know, managing expectations and saying, listen, yes, I'm pregnant, but you need to understand like that we're doing this on behalf, you know, for someone else. This baby's not coming home with us. You're not getting a new sibling. It's, you know, so let's treat it for what it is. But again, you know, Neil and James, you guys being in a completely different country, how did we manage the logistics? Like, did you plan to come into town around Crystal's due date, or did we know we were going to induce on a certain date and like, this is it? So we, you know, how did all of that work out? Or was it a situation where, you know, like Crystal said, her water broke and then all of a sudden she's like WhatsApping you like, hey, you guys better book a flight because he's coming, you know, how did...
God, I'm glad she wasn't WhatsApping us when we were in the UK because that would have been too late.
Our story is a good one. It's not like a crazy story, but it is I can't believe that just happened.
Oh, please share. This is awesome.
I feel like it's quite long. I'll start right at the start and then Crystal can interject if you want to. Basically, well, we were going to fly out, I think maybe like 2.5 weeks or so before the due dates. I can't quite remember. And then anyway, back in the UK, lots of people sign up to antenatal classes. So like they're called like bump and baby here, right? So we went to our bump and baby classes and suddenly everybody started having their babies really early. So we panicked and we were like, oh no, like what happens if Lenny comes really early? So we actually moved our flights forward about a week. And so we flew out 3-4 weeks in advance because we were like, this is 3 weeks in advance. There we go. God, my memory's terrible. And, you know, because we were like, you know, this is the most important thing that's going to happen. We can't miss this. So we got out there and then basically we found out that,
we had the earthquake.
Oh gosh, there was the earthquake. So we turned up and then like day one, there was the earthquake and we didn't know what was going on and nor was anyone else around there because supposedly earthquakes aren't normal in Connecticut. But anyway, so there was the earthquake and that's all started the process really, didn't it? And I think Lenny was breech. So Crystal was breech. And we had an appointment one morning. And
we had it was our normal checkup for 37 weeks. And I felt fine. I felt big, but I felt fine. Like nothing bad. We had our normal checkup. And they came for the checkup, which is awesome because that was the first time that we were now getting back together for the end of the journey. And the purpose of the checkup was obviously the normal one, just to make sure the baby's doing well. But then to find out what we wanted to do, because we found out that Lenny was breached like a week before. And with us getting close, it didn't really want to have a cesarean section. So we were trying to find ways to unbreach Lenny. And so we went to our checkup that week. And then on the Saturday, we had an appointment to possibly figure out if we could turn Lenny. But before you do that, you have to make sure that there's enough fluid and you have enough space to actually physically turn the baby. And flip the baby over. So we went to that appointment and the woman was like, "Oh, you're doing great. You have lots of fluid. Like there's room, like no big deal." It was like totally fine.
This point was feeling all good. And then we went to like a diner and had some like breakfast. We were all chilled. And then I think Crystal went off to watch some
baseball.
Baseball. And we went basically to settle into our Airbnb. So we were staying in a place called Beacon over in New York State, I think. And basically we got to our Airbnb, we'd done a supermarket shop, and I kind of settled in to get some work done. I was like, right, I need to get on top of my work before like baby comes. Neil's like, I'm going to go and explore the local area. And Neil leaves the house and then suddenly Crystal messages or calls, I can't remember, and basically waters are broken and then panic starts. And obviously we didn't tell Crystal we were panicked at the time, but
yeah, that's natural.
And then we start driving as soon as possible back to where Crystal was. Yeah.
I felt fine that whole day. I felt fine the whole day, and I was tired. I was laying on my couch and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go take a nap. And I went to lay in my bed and I got up for a few minutes to go to the restroom. I went, laid back down, and I just felt like wet. And I was like, what is going like, did I not wipe it like well enough? Like that's a little low TMI, but like, did I not wipe well? Like, and nope, sure enough, as soon as I stood up, water just like literally, it was like the movies, and my other two did not happen like this. So it was just like, that's not happened. No, It literally just like gushed out as soon as I stood up, and I was like, well, here we go.
Now, and again, you know, having a C-section, which I know no one ever wants and looks forward to, but after going through all of that, when we talked last time, you said you would be willing to do this again. Are you thinking you might do one more surrogacy, or you are?
Yeah, I definitely want to do one more. Yeah,
that's wonderful though. That just tells me like what a great process it was, and that you've gotten so much out of it. So that's really cool. And
well, I do have to say, my expectations will be low because and not in a bad way. It's just, I feel like this journey was really amazing. And I just know it's not going to be repeated.
Right.
Like, I know I'm not going to have the same connection with people. Like, I just know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm happy it happened because I went in here with no expectation as it was. But now my bar is set and I have to realize that that's not always going to be the case. So when I do it again, it's literally like I have to go into it again as like it's the first time, and that's just it. Like, and be okay and not compare it to this one, because I honestly don't think that this one is. There's
just the exception.
Nothing can surpass this one.
Right.
You never know. It might be better, Crystal. You just never know.
Yeah. Well, and I should say, just for people who are hearing this and you know, not to, because it was a good experience all around, but not to make light of it and make it seem like this is what's right for everyone. Like me, you know, Crystal, you and I have talked. I am 40 years old, but I am still very fertile from what I've been told. I no longer have an interest in having children of my own, but I would like to go through a pregnancy just to experience that. So I have talked with you about potentially looking into a surrogacy journey, but I will say for anybody listening, like, don't think that this is going to be the way it goes every single time. You may go through a couple of different IPs. You may find that you just you think you have a connection initially, and then once the ball gets rolling, something may happen, and they could back out. You could turn around and decide it's not for you. There are all kinds of things that happen, and people really need to take into account where they are in life, their mental health, the support that they have around them. Like I know that I have support, and I have people that will look after me, and I should say as well, my company offers benefits for surrogacy and things of that nature, whereas not a lot of people are fortunate enough to have a work-life balance that would accommodate something like this. So there's a lot of factors. It's not just simply a matter of, oh, I'm available and physically I'm in good shape and I can do this for somebody else. It's not going to be all sunshine and roses from start to finish. It is very emotionally and physically it's a big undertaking for both sides, because again, as Neil and James said, they're in a completely different country, and if anything goes wrong, it's not like they can just be there right away. So there's a lot of factors that you have to consider when looking into something like this. But I'm really happy to hear that it's worked so wonderfully for all of you. But again, it's so interesting to me that and I don't know if it's the same in the US or what, but the fact that the UK is like, you need all of this paperwork in order to declare this child to be yours. Like, that's wild to me.
So even here in the US, we had to, again, it's just odd even here. It's a UK thing too, but it's also here in the US. Like, the baby is still technically mine. I'm considered the birth mother. My name went on the birth certificate.
Okay.
Even though, again, I would understand it more if it was my egg, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it has my DNA, but it has. I have no connection to it.
Well,
like,
it's really interesting.
Aside from it just growing, but it's still technically the child is mine. It's not even considered the egg donor's baby. The child is mine. That's really interesting to me, because like we've seen with things like Teen Mom and stuff. Again, I don't know what Neil and James, how much you guys know about American horrible television shows, but like Teen Mom, when the women give up their baby for adoption, they're literally signing their rights over in the hospital bed. Like, they haven't even actually. It's literally like the moment the child is out, they're signing off their rights as a parent. So that's really interesting to me that for whatever reason, there's like more red tape with this process, when it's like, we've known since the beginning that I would not be having any claims to this child. This is not my child. So it's really strange. And who knows, maybe it's a state to state thing. But that's just pretty fascinating. And again, working with an agency in LA. So you had the baby here in Connecticut where you live, but you went out to LA a couple of times for checkups and to meet initially, or no?
Okay.
The LA trip was purely the IVF portion.
Okay.
Was just for the fertility part.
Okay.
And once I was confirmed pregnant, and they did, while I was here, I would have to go and get some blood work done, and I did do one checkup with a partnering IVF clinic that's here, and I was directed from the agency, actually. So the agency, connects people, because again, not everyone's going to be in the state where they go through the fertility treatment, which is what happened to me. So you have to find another one that can help with some of the ultrasound stuff aside from just the blood work. So I think I had 2 ultrasounds with them, but then once I got cleared, which is about the 8 or 9, 10 week time frame, maybe even 10, because it's after all the medicine, all the hormones that they give, that you take. 10 weeks, then I have to go to my own doctor, and it just transfers over to that.
Yeah. Now, just again, to not, because I don't want people to get the impression that everything is all sunshine and roses with this process, because it is a lot. At any point, did any of you kind of get to a place where you maybe were kind of second guessing it? Like, again, it takes a financial toll. It takes a mental and emotional toll on you. And again, being in a completely different country as well, having kind of that disconnect. Was there any point where you were like, you know what, maybe we should do it differently? Maybe this isn't the route we wanted to take. I mean, at any point, were any of you feeling kind of like, I mean, obviously, I would say not after you became pregnant, I would hope, but you do have that too. You have those, you kind of second guess, you have those doubts. Did anyone have that kind of feeling during all of this?
I mean, maybe it's a bit of a precursor, I guess. We mentioned earlier that we went on another journey before this with Crystal, and I guess that was quite hard because we got to the point of being pregnant, and we actually lost twins very early in the second trimester.
Wow. Okay.
So that was quite a difficult thing to go through, because it's difficult for anybody who goes through that kind of loss. But then also being over here in the UK and being separate for that. So I think we had to go through quite a bit of, I don't know, what do you call it? But we had to make sure that we were both mentally in a place ready to be able to go into a new journey with kind of fresh enthusiasm and confidence, and not being too jaded by what had happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was probably the hardest bit for us to actually get ready to go into another journey.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think there were some points in the journey where we had some worries, but from our side, as in whether we were going to make it. But I think, but no, I think once we were in it, we just loved the process.
I think that's the thing. I think once you're in, you're in. And without going into too much without talking too much about the finances involved, like with all the will in the world, the agency can say, well, a surrogacy journey can cost around this much, but actually it depends, because, you might need this scan, you might need that, you might need to do this, you might need to fly over several more times, or, we're not US citizens. We had to get some insurance as well for Lenny, because once he was born, he's no longer covered under Crystal's insurance.
Okay, sure.
So if he was...
So we had to do paperwork to before the birth, go through the courts to basically recognize that it's not my baby, and I'm not going to have any responsibility of the baby once it's born, right? So they had to do it all with the help of the agency. I from my standpoint of what was going on, I think I would have died with just all that paperwork. That would have been overwhelming with me.
But again,
I'm sure it was for you guys.
Yeah, but again, going through that and still being told technically we don't recognize this as your child. It's well, hold on a minute. I'm providing everything. I've paid all of this money. I'm filling out the insurance paperwork. The child is now home living with me under my care. That's got to be the biggest mental. Pardon my French, but it's a mind fuck because you're just wait a minute, this is absolutely my child in every aspect, but for some reason we need one piece of paper to be signed off upon for the country to recognize it. That's so that's just crazy. What a pain in the butt. Oh my goodness.
What I will say though is, I mean, at the hospital, yes, Crystal's name was on the forms. But we did also get to fill in a form, which is then sent off to the state registry office, which is where the birth certificate's drawn up. And so 2 weeks after Lenny was born, we could go and collect that birth certificate, and it was printed with our names on.
That's good.
Not Crystal.
Yeah, so they were able to get it switched, right? Yeah. So the whole point was during the first, at birth, my name's on it. Even though I don't want it to be, it's just a legality. My name has to be on it because it came out of mine, right? Which to me still is astronomical because I'm not the mom in any aspect, right? It's like cooking food and it coming out of the oven and saying the oven owns the food, right? No.
Yeah, you were just the cocoon. You weren't the ingredient. You didn't add any ingredients. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But they did all the paperwork that they needed to do. Again, I even just having paperwork for just my own child's birth, I think I'm so overwhelmed and so happy I didn't have to do any of that except sign something that says I don't want the baby. Right. I don't. Lenny's not mine.
We ended up having to do this pre-court order, which then meant that we could change the birth certificate retrospectively, and we ended up having this virtual court appearance with Crystal, and the courts, I can't remember where they were based, somewhere in Connecticut.
Hartford.
Anyway. They loved it because they were like, we've just never had a case like this before, and they were really just pleased that they could be part of our journey, which was actually really nice.
That is really nice.
We never sent them the photos. They asked.
No, they did ask for photos actually, and so yeah, I think it will be extra nice when, you know, here in the UK, kind of, you know, legally it's all been confirmed as well, and it doesn't really matter because it's just paperwork. Right. That's the way we see it, but you know, it's important, I guess, for Lenny as well that we go through the rest of that process. But you know, here we still have to appear in court in the UK. We have to be observed with Lenny to make sure that we're being good parents, to be formally recognised as Lenny's parents, even though we already are. So it's, you know, it's just lots of hoops, but it's worth it.
Now, so Crystal's willing to do this again. Do you guys have any interest? I mean, do you want more children, or you said this, you know, we just want the one, we're happy to get the one. Have we thought ahead to the future? I mean, it's early days. You've got a newborn in the house. So I can't imagine maybe you're thinking that far ahead just yet, but.
Yeah, we don't sleep anymore, so we don't want any more children. No.
Well, technically, tomorrow is Lenny's 6 months. Tomorrow.
Yeah. It's definitely something we talk about, and because if we did want another, it's something that we'd have to probably crack on with at some point soon. But the reality is, it costs a lot of money, and we don't have any money left.
The thing is, it's a decision for us. I mean, like, you know, it is expensive, and you have to be in a fortunate enough position to be able to afford it as a choice. But it's not like we're rolling in money. You know, we've made compromises of what to spend money on in our life. You know, rather than moving into a bigger house, we've chosen that a family is more important to us. So, you know, there's always ways to make choices and decisions. And I don't know, I think in some ways we would love to. I don't know.
And that's fair. Listen, here's what's going to happen. I predict is, you know, a couple years down the line, you're going to forget about all of the mountains of paperwork and the legalities you had to go through. And you're just going to look at Lenny and think, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to have another little sibling running around? And wouldn't it be so great?
I mean, I'm doing it already.
Yeah. And then you'll go through the process and you'll go, oh shit, I forgot what a pain in the ass all of this is. And but I mean, I'm just looking at this sweet little, oh my God, he's just so beautiful. And it's just, you know, I just want more of him in the world. So I support it either way. But speaking of support, how were your families when you were talking about, when you finally decided this is what, I know Crystal's family kind of gave her a little static about it, but how were your families when you said, you know, this is what we're thinking we're doing? And then of course, then you hear from the States, you're going out to the States for this. Like, what were the thoughts on that?
I need to be really careful because my mum will probably end up listening to this.
Oh, hi, Mom.
No. I think we were really lucky in that both sets of parents were really supportive. I mean, we had to kind of, with anyone that you say, oh, we're planning on doing surrogacy, you have to explain it. You know, everything from like, there's going to be an egg and then there's going to be a separate surrogate and we have to do this. I think we tried not to overwhelm our parents with the ins and outs and everything. And I don't think they quite realised how stressed we may have been at times. But
sure.
They were really involved in the journey. In fact, my mum wanted to come out to the States and be there.
Yeah.
And we
didn't allow it.
It's a lot, right? It's a lot.
We wanted time to spend with Crystal and to connect with our son. Like we actually thought, to be honest, like the time we spent out there earlier this year was amazing. And it was just one of the best times.
Oh, great.
Even though like a lot of it was like up all night with a newborn baby, it was just a really special time. And we wanted that time to really bond. We hadn't been through the physical process that Crystal had gone through.
Right.
But was he hearing our voice every day? We read books and sent them to Crystal to play to her belly, but to have a window of time where it's just us, and he can just hear it was really important.
Absolutely.
And if my mum was there, she'd have been
forget
him
it. Well, and I
our
mentioned
families be so supportive, and our friends, and
that's great.
Everyone just wanted to understand all about it and learn, to be honest.
And something else that's worth adding, I think, when you're making a baby naturally, you don't necessarily tell your friends that you're trying. Right. Some people do.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's really hard not to let people know that we were doing this or that there's going to be a transfer coming up. So actually, we had an amazing support network for our first journey when we miscarried, because we'd involved people in it. So even though we were just shy over 3 months pregnant when we lost the twins, we just had the most amazing people around us giving us the love and support.
Yeah.
But what it meant was the next time round, you couldn't avoid the, so are you trying again? Where are you at?
Sure.
Is the transfer? Are you pregnant?
Right.
And
well, because everybody's all in, right? At that point, everyone's hoping for the best. Yeah. Everyone just has faith that it'll work out, that, all of the right elements will come together, and you're just going to end up with this beautiful little boy. And thankfully it worked out this time with Crystal. I just can't, he's just so gorgeous. He's just so gorgeous. But what I forgot to ask was, so when Crystal's water broke and she reached out to you and she said, hey, it's go time. Were you guys in the room when she was having the C-section, or were you, okay, so you were fully a part of the whole thing. Oh my goodness. What a traumatic experience for you.
So I actually was probably, I really wanted them to experience everything, right? Because it's their baby.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I didn't want them to be treated as just like people waiting in the waiting room. I wanted them to be treated as the father, because they are his fathers. But from my standpoint, didn't want them to just be like, oh, trying to give me privacy, I guess, in that aspect. Like, this is what happens if you're going to have a baby. This is what happens, right? So you need to be a part of this. There is no privacy at this point. Like you're having a baby. Like that's it. So I really was like adamant about it too. I mean, it made it really clear that I was like, anything that you're doing, they need to be in the room. Like, anything, unless they choose not to be. Right. Like, from my standpoint, I wanted to told the hospital, the nurses, anything that's going on, they need to be in the room, right?
Well, and you needed that support as well, right? It's because
but it was more so because I didn't want them to miss out on any of the experience. Like, if I had my husband or if I was giving birth, and had a partner, they would be in the room next to me, right? Yeah. So the same should happen to them, just because we're not, married or together or any of that stuff, right? Like, doesn't mean that it's not their experience. So I made that very clear in every situation, because I felt at some point they were trying to like, oh, well, we need to do this. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I literally don't care. Like, it's all part of the process. Like, they should be a part of it. And if they don't want to, then they don't want to. That's on them. But don't exclude them without saying, hey, this is what we're doing. Do you want to do it? So,
sure. And at the end, the hospital was really good as well, because I think,
we got lucky with that.
Crystal was really like, I mean, we all were, but like, Crystal was like, they both need to be in the room. And like, normally only one of us would be able to go in with Crystal for the C-section. No, there were
like 10 people in that room. There were so many, because there was both of them. There was me. There was the anesthesiologist. There was the doctor who did the C-section, plus her nurse, plus my OBGYN was able to be in there. I think that's the most that they've ever seen in that room, because typically there's probably like 3 people. Like, there were so many people.
Yeah.
They told me this later, but there were a couple of women whose shifts had finished, but they just wanted to stay because they'd never seen anything like this before.
That's wild. That's funny. Oh my goodness. Well, how exciting. Well, so we're wrapping up here, but again, it's an arduous process. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of, again, emotional investment that's put into this. Is there anything that you want to say to people about this process? Any life advice you can give now that you have all gone through this and you have this beautiful baby that, you know, which is the final outcome that we were all hoping for? Just either Crystal or Neil or James, you know, is there anything else that you want to share that maybe something that was a surprise to you while going through this, something that you just didn't anticipate? I mean, granted, there's a lot of things that you're not going to anticipate initially, but did just anything kind of strike you as like, oh, this was not something I was going to think about? They're thinking.
I think if I'm really honest, like a few years ago, like surrogacy wasn't really on the radar. All I really knew about surrogacy was something that Elton John did. And
sure, yeah.
I really probably did view it as this very, you know, just something that rich people do. And I suppose my mindset's completely different. You don't need to be rich to do this. You just have to find a way. And I think people find a way to do things all the time. People find the money to renovate their house, and, you know, if it means remortgaging a house and borrowing some money, like if you really want a child and you really want your own child. Yeah. And I know that Lenny's biologically one of ours, but we genuinely feel like we've created Lenny. You know, we both, without going into too much detail, but we both donated sperm and both tried to create embryos. And just doing that made it feel like us as a same-sex couple have created a baby. Yeah. And so I think it's really easy to be overwhelmed by it and think it's going to be this like life-changing amount of money. But you can find a way, I think, with anything. You just...
I think what I've definitely learned is that definitely the biology bit just doesn't matter. Like, you know, it's that we've been through the whole journey. That's the bit that matters for us. And like, that's what we wanted out of it. It wasn't that we needed to have a biological son. It's that we needed to have, we just wanted to experience the whole journey that a lot of people get to experience in life. And we've got to do that. And it has been exhausting and emotional at times. And we've been through a lot of highs and lows across both of our journeys, but it's been amazing. And yeah, do it. Like we're so lucky.
That's
Crystal's
awesome.
Amazing.
That's awesome. Well, again, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. The IPs have a name, Neil and James. And again, thank you. It was so wonderful to get to see beautiful baby Lenny. Crystal, I'm so happy that all of this has worked out. And I'm happy that it was such a positive experience that you're willing to do this all over again. I just think it's just great. I know we've got a lot going on in this country as far as conversation about things like IVF and surrogacy and adoption and abortion and all of that mess, but there is always a beautiful light at the end of those kinds of tunnels. So it's just wonderful to be able to talk with all of you about this. So thank you so much. And guys, you know, we'll catch you next week. This was Try Not to Curse, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.